So I flipped hundreds of houses and I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. Some mistakes even costing me over $100,000 alone. In this video, I want to break down the 4 most common mistakes that flippers make and how you can avoid those. And there's a lot more than 4, but we're going to talk about the biggest 4 today. Right now, in today's market, the first one is to not ignore the market, right? I've seen a lot of people already get hurt by this. A lot of foreclosures coming into play. I've even bought in foreclosures from flippers or investors that bought way overpaid for a property already. In this market, this recession is just really getting started. They think the market is what it was over the last 1, 2, 3, 4 years. It's not. The market's changed. And when the market changes, you have to be able to pivot with the market as well. We're no longer in the days where you can buy a house and 6 months later just plan on it appreciating by 20, 30, 40 grand and there's your profit. That doesn't exist anymore. So for me, when markets change like this, pivot. Think about doing, instead of doing, long deals, find deals that you can get in and out of quicker. Instead of doing very heavy rehabs, find deals that, require less money to rehab the property. Instead of spending a ton of money on rehabs and fixtures and finishes on a house, really dive in and look at all the comps in the neighborhood and determine what needs done and what doesn't need done. Does that bathroom really need renovated? Does that bonus room really need renovated? Does it really need a new roof? Do I have to put a fence up on the property? You got to dive in and look at the comps to make sure that you're spending money on the right things. Again, you can't just throw a whole bunch of money at something and it go crazy in value. That's not the market that we're at anymore. And listen, I've even been a part of it too. Over the last few years, there's probably 3 or 4 houses that I purchased that I had no business buying and no business making money on, but I did. I bought them and I made money on them because I bought them, and then magically 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, the ARV of the property went from 220 to 260, right? So I should have broken even, but I made $40,000 because the value of the property went up $40,000 over a 3 to 6 month period, right? I've been there before and I was saved from it. And when the market turned, there's a couple of scenarios, 1 or 2 houses, that the same scenario happened to me and I ended up losing money on the deal, right? Market turned, couldn't sell a house, ended up taking over a $20,000 loss on 1 house. I bought it in a bad location, I over improved it, I ran the numbers wrong, and it sat on the market until I ended up losing 20, 30 grand on it. So make sure you understand where the market is headed. So mistake number 2, and this has costed me the most amount of money than anything we're going to talk about today, is hiring the right contractors. Take your time. Don't just force yourself into a situation with a contractor because you got to get the deal done. I promise you the contractor can do way more damage to you than sitting on the property for an extra week or 2 to find the right contractor. You have to vet these people correctly. They will 100% destroy your property, destroy the profitability on the property, and walk away like nothing happened and leave you holding the bag. So you got to vet these people. So where do you find good contractors? Ideally, in a perfect world, you get a referral from someone. And that doesn't mean that they're going to be a great contractor, right? I have a saying that says all contractors are good until they're not. They could have been good, amazing for the last 2 years, and then you happen to work with them and they have a life event and they, go off the deep end and take all your money, right? Just because it's a referral doesn't mean, it's a guaranteed good contractor. So still do your vetting process, but you want to talk to other, referrals, other people they've done work for. Ideally, you want to go to their other job sites and not planned. Just pop up on their other job sites, because if it's planned, they can make sure that it's nice and tidy. They can make sure that there's guys working there. They can set it up where it looks amazing. So show up unannounced and really see how it actually looks. Is anybody even at the house working on the project? Or if you knock on the door and they said they were working on the house and the person's like, no, I've never heard of that person in my life. That's probably not a good sign for you to hire that contractor. The other thing that we do is we call it the 5 critical documents. So every contractor we work with has to sign these 5 critical documents, and it keeps everybody on the same page and accountable to one another. There's a scope of work, exactly what needs done, how it needs done, what materials need to be put in. So very clear, concise expectations as to what needs done. We also have a draw schedule. So this says, when people get paid, how much they get paid, what needs to be done for them to get paid. So all on the same page, everybody knows exactly what everybody's getting paid. There's an independent contractor agreement that states, how much money they're charging, how long it's going to take, how many days, what are the penalties, etc. There's a lien release. So every time we pay them, they have to sign a lien release saying that we paid them. It sounds obvious, but listen, I've been there many times before. And the last one is insurance. You got to make sure that they have an insurance policy in case something goes wrong, that they have insurance to be able to cover that as well. All these documents are extremely important important. Highly recommend to use, some of them, if not all of them, anytime you work with a contractor. And how most people end up getting burnt with contractors, and I've seen this time and time again. Again, I've done this. Paying a contractor money up front, and then the contractor just disappearing and never showing up again. Never answering your calls, never showing up to the job site, never dropping off the material, nothing, right? So you wanna limit the amount of money you paying out up front to contractors as much as humanly possible, because that's typically the biggest way people get burned. If a contractor comes to me and says, hey, I need 50% down on a job, I'm telling them to kick rocks. Like, why do you need 50% down, right? So definitely not doing that. I might give them 3, 5, 7%, maybe if it's a great referral, or if I have a good relationship with them, to buy some materials to get started. Typically, ideally want to have no money out of pocket and pay for the work as it is completed. The next big thing too to pay attention when flipping houses is choosing the right or the wrong location. Location can never be fixed. There's a lot of other things that can be fixed. Money can solve a lot of problems. It cannot solve a location problem. So if you buy a house in the wrong location, it's a very bad situation, and you're probably never going to be able to get out of it, right? Over the last few years, everything was selling. Market was amazing. I saw houses on like the busiest streets known to mankind, where cars are going by all day, every day, sell for some prices, the highest prices in the neighborhood. I'm like, what is going on right now? Those same houses today are sitting on the market for significantly less than what they were purchased for just a couple years ago. You never want the house on a main street. You never want the house that's literally the last house in the neighborhood right before the main street. You never want the house that backs up, to a warehouse, or has, these huge power lines running on top of them. Location is very important, especially in times like this when buyers are getting more and more picky on the houses that they want to buy, because there's not as many buyers in the market because prices have gone up, interest rates have gone up, etc. And the last one, and maybe one of the most important ones, is simply the numbers, right? People skew numbers on paper to make it make sense on paper, but in real life it doesn't make sense, because people get emotionally involved into these deals. They feel like they have to do another deal, or they have to do their first deal, or it's been a month since they did a deal, so they have to do another deal. So emotions get involved and come into play and make deals look better than what they actually are. To simplify it, you want to be able to take numbers and put them into a spreadsheet, and then the spreadsheet tells you to do the deal or not. So what are the big numbers that you have to pay attention to? There's 3 of them. The first one is the ARV, the after repaired value. What is a property going to be worth once it is renovated, right? You got to be real with yourself. You really have to look at the comps. Is it a 3-bed or a 4-bed? Is it 2 bathrooms or 1.5 bathrooms? Does it have a fenced-in yard or not a fenced-in yard? Does it have a 1 or a 2-car garage or no garage? Is it on a slab or a basement? These all make a big difference when you're comping out houses. So you need to be very realistic with your comps and come up with a very real after repaired value, and don't overshoot it, because that'll pinch the numbers very, very quickly. The second number you have to know is your rehab budget. Again, extremely important. So come up with your rehab budget, be realistic, add 10 to 20% contingency. Even to this day, myself, I've done hundreds and hundreds of deals. I still add at minimum a 10% contingency to my repair budgets. So if you're starting out, you're maybe a little bit newer, add 20%. So if you think it's going to cost 30, add 20%. $36,000 is the new budget for this property, right? So always have a contingency budget, and if possible, leave an inspection contingency within the contract, maybe 7 days. So during those 7 days, if you think it's going to cost 30 grand, you bring in a contractor to quote the job during those 7 days. And if the contractor's like, yeah, 35 grand, then you're close, you can negotiate. But if the contractor's like, oh no, this is going to be $70,000, then you need to ask more questions. Hey, what did I miss? Did I miss the roof? Did I miss the sewer line? Did I miss the electrical panel? What's going on? Because that's a huge difference. And ideally get multiple contractor estimates during that inspection period to double check your numbers, to make sure that when you buy a house, your numbers are actually accurate. And the third one is hold time, because every day that you hold a property, you're paying interest to your lender, you're paying property taxes, you might be paying HOA, you're paying insurance, you're paying lawn mowing, you're paying utility bills. So every day you own a property, there's more cost that comes out of your pocket. So budget appropriately for the hold time, because if you budget, 60 days and it takes you 180 days, you're gonna spend a lot more money than what you thought you were gonna spend on those holding costs. So the days of budgeting, 2 or 3 months to hold a property, renovate it in 30 to 60 days and sell it the first day on the market in 30 days, those might not be around anymore, right? So what we're doing is we're budgeting appropriately timeline-wise for the renovation, adding a little bit, and then we're budgeting for, 30 days of on-market activity. Selling a house in a day doesn't necessarily happen all the time anymore. It might be on the listed for 1, 2, 3, or 4 weeks. So 30 days of holding time, and then 30 to 45 days of closing time once you go into contract for them to actually close and buy the property and pay you out. I can give you example after example after example of real life scenarios that I've been through of all the things that I just mentioned. And I've literally lost hundreds of thousands of dollars out of my pocket, you know, making these mistakes. And I've definitely lost the opportunity cost of $1 million+ on this as well. One decision to hire one contractor cost me over 300 grand on one decision. So take it from me, you know, take your time. Make sure you're hiring and vetting these contractors appropriately. Make sure you're running your numbers accurately. Make sure you're buying properties in the right locations. And if they are the wrong locations, make sure you drastically reduce your after repaired value to compensate for being in the wrong location. Do these things ahead of time. Some of the best deals you're going to buy are the deals that you pass on, right? If you do this ahead of time, you may pass on the deal, which may be a great decision. If you do it afterwards, that's where you start actually losing money. It's not a good feeling to lose money in real estate. You got to pay somebody else to buy a house from you. So you buy a house from me and I'm paying you to buy the house from me. It's not a good feeling at all. So comment below what your biggest takeaway is and watch this next video here to learn how to get 100% funding on your real estate deals.